speaking of things that should be easy for the Democrats to get behind, I'd like to transition to our second topic. The increase to the minimum wage is something that Democrats promised in advance of the general election last November, as well as the special elections in Georgia. Now, about a week ago, the parliamentarian in the Senate advised that it could not be included as part of the COVID aid bill. And now we've got this divide where Joe Biden, Kamala Harris are not interested in overriding the parliamentarian. Some in the Senate, like Bernie Sanders, are saying that it should be done. Elizabeth Warren saying it should be done. And Bernie is promising that there will be a vote on this minimum wage increase. What do you think about the current divide between those sides?
Well, there's no reason to follow the parliamentarian's advice. I actually don't demonize the parliamentarian. It's not the parliamentarian's fault. Her job is to give advice, but we can't hide behind the parliamentarian advice when in this case, the advice is wrong. I mean, the minimum wage has a budget impact. It clearly does. The CBO found that it did. And all it takes is for the presiding chair, in this case, Vice President Harris, to say that it does have a budget impact. It's so much easier to do this than to overturn the filibuster or the Byrd rule. This is actually keeping all that in place. And then it allows for a vote on an increase in the minimum wage. Here's the important thing to note. It's not just if you want to raise it to $15, which we all do and think is the floor. It's even if you want to raise it to $12 or $13, you can't do any of that without it being ruled in reconciliation. The alternative is to try to get 60 votes. You're not going to get 10 Republicans to vote for something when you can't even get a single Republican to vote on the COVID relief. That's why this is such a big fight. If we don't overrule the parliamentarian, we're basically saying it's going to take 60 votes to increase the minimum wage.
So I know that I believe Mitt Romney supports, I think it was a $10 an hour. So you don't think that at 11 or 12 or 13, anything like that, you'd be able to get enough to actually, not you, you're not in the Senate, but in the Senate to be able to surpass a filibuster?
I think it'd be very tough. I mean, maybe you could get Romney, but $10 seems awfully inadequate. And then what are we going to do? Go another decade without raising it again? So I don't think that's what we ought to settle for. And it's actually not clear to me that you would even get McConnell allowing 10 Republicans to vote for that in a standalone bill. So the point is that it's important to distinguish two issues. One is the $15 wage, which all of the progressives are going to fight for. But even those people who are not for the $15 wage should be rooting for Kamala Harris to disregard the parliamentarian decision, because if she doesn't do that, you're even ruling out the possibility of a more moderate senator saying, let's raise it to $12. So let's at least have the conversation and have a vote on increasing the wage. Otherwise, you're really leaving it up to the whims of 10 Republicans.
So you alluded to it as sort of hiding behind the parliamentarian earlier. I certainly see it as hiding, but my question is why? Why hide behind the parliamentarian if it is something that you've campaigned on and say that you support? Is it that it's considered too divisive to overrule the parliamentarian? It would look bad. Is it a belief that somehow it could pass as a standalone bill facing an obvious filibuster from the Republicans? So if it is hiding, what is the purpose of the hiding? Why are they doing that?
I think there's a concern that it would upset the institutions and the rules of the Senate, and people would blame the Democrats for blowing up the institution. I don't think that's what it's doing. It's not even overturning the filibuster. It's not even overturning the Byrd rule. And by the way, if you vote if you overrule or disregard the parliamentarian, moderate senators who disagree with you could still vote against your decision, because it takes 60 votes to actually overturn the chair's decision. So you could give the moderate senators a way of saying, look, vote against our decision. If you disagree with it, you can stand up for a more strict interpretation of the Byrd rule, but you can be with us in final passage. It seems to me so little downside. I don't think most Americans even knew that there was a parliamentarian in the Senate who had this kind of power. What they care about is, are we going to deliver? And saying we didn't deliver because of a parliamentarian ruling, I'm not sure that's going to fly.
I don't know, Congressman. I think that there's millions of Americans that if on the one hand they could get an increase to minimum wage, but it would involve offending the parliamentarian, I think they would willingly forgo that raise to their wage. But anyway.
The irony is, I don't even think the parliamentarian would be offended. I doubt she wants to be making this decision. Her job is to give an advisory opinion. She didn't sign up to be making decisions about millions of people's fate. And partly, I feel for her. She shouldn't be in this position. She shouldn't be demonized. Just have the guts to make the call. That's the person. The person who should be making the call is the chair.
So my final question for you, sort of looking ahead to where this might go, if it doesn't go the way that you seem to want it to. Historically, midterm elections are not good for the party in power. And we know that there's literally hundreds of bills being proposed around the country to limit voting to try to ensure that the Republicans will do as well as they can manipulate themselves into doing. To whatever, I don't know to what extent you can speak to it, but Joe, the president, the vice president, do they get what the midterms are gonna be like if they don't deliver on these promises? Do they not, like they seem to be scared of some things. Are they not scared of what those midterms might be like?
Well, I think they are understandably concerned first and foremost on COVID, and they are right to say that the biggest priority has to be getting the vaccinations out. It has to be getting COVID under control. The second biggest priority has to be immediate economic assistance to people, and all of that is right. But there's a third pillar to that, which is we need our voters mobilized. We need our activists mobilized. They all mobilized and went through risk to their own health to go vote. Some of those, I was talking to them on just on Monday, the fair wage campaign, where they were tipped workers making $2.13, and they were told you're going to get finally a dignity wage. So to get those folks, they're not going to go vote Republican, but are they going to go out and mobilize and get folks out to the polls? That's the concern. And when we don't have that kind of mobilization, when we don't have that kind of turnout, we don't win. Certainly we don't win in the midterms. And so it's the morally right thing to do. I don't think it should be guided by politics, but politically we would be making a huge mistake if we don't speak to the aspirations of that base.
I couldn't agree more. And as always, Congressman, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, appreciate it.
For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.